think so often we tamp down our emotional responses at work because it's much more respectable to say, that's a really strong idea, instead of, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've heard all week.
Welcome to another episode of Stickology. Today's guest is Bree Groff, a leading voice in the future of work and company culture. She's a senior advisor at the global consultancy, SY Partners, and the author of Today Was Fun, a thought-provoking read about the future of work and her mission to make sure that people enjoy every day. Bree, I recently finished your book. I couldn't be more excited to have you join us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You shared a really inspiring story in the book about a NASA janitor who, when he was asked what he did, he said, "I'm here to help put a man on the moon." And it's a powerful idea. But you also question whether we're better off supporting this large purpose, like putting a man on the moon, or supporting the people around us. And I was hoping maybe you could talk a little about that to start.
I have told this story before to leadership teams and as a consultant, and it sort of riles people up, like, oh, that's beautiful. The power of purpose, the power of society shifting accomplishments. And I don't believe this. Like, I actually find fault with the argument, how much work that janitor would have to do to tie his work in mopping the floors to a milestone of humanity. It's not necessary because actually the work that janitor was doing is appreciated by the humans who get to walk on the clean floors. When we value society scaled ambitions over human scaled ambitions, what we end up doing is devaluing any of those one-on-one interactions where I'm mopping the floor and you walk by and you're glad to see a clean floor and you say thanks and I say my pleasure. It's overly lofty. It creates a really high bar. And then frankly, the people who sleep best at night are the CEOs and the presidents and the executive directors. All the rest of us, we have to feel like, oh, our work doesn't matter unless it's part of a grander purpose. And I just reject that. I reject that because our support and care for each other one-on-one is the most human and beautiful thing that we do.
Whether you're doing high-end consulting or shoveling shit, it's about really enjoying the people that you're around, right? I think that the more you can contribute to those that you're surrounded by, the more that you're appreciated and the more that you appreciate others because it kind of builds on itself, right?
Yeah, for sure. It makes me chuckle sometimes because there's so much research about what makes humans happy in the long run. Well, surprise, surprise, it's just the people. Like, it's just our relationships that make us happy in the end. And yet we don't prioritize them when we think about work. We think about our colleagues as fellow cogs or other people that we have to like, oh, I need to be nice to Bob so Bob returns my email so that I can send the thing I need to send on time. When in fact, if it's the relationships that mean the most, well, then why can't we think of work as something we do while we're hanging out with each other? If the hanging out with each other, enjoying each other's brilliance and creativity and friendship and laughs, if that's ultimately the driver of a happy life, why don't we call it that? And then work is something we do to keep ourselves busy. We create some value, we make some money, it's all a good time.
I take issue with the word work because it has such a negative connotation, but if we could change what being at work is or feels like, maybe it wouldn't have that connotation. Let's shift gears a little bit. You talk several times throughout the book about legendary designer Milton Glaser. I actually, obviously, am familiar with his work, but I wasn't familiar with him prior to that. He's famously designed the I Love New York logo and several other icons. And he even once said that work can be better than sex. What are some of the most powerful lessons that you learned from him?
So as you mentioned, Milton is sort of a character in the book. There's little snippets of my interviews with his longtime colleague, Sue Walsh, in every chapter. And the more I learned about him, I'm like, oh, he is my guide. He needs to be a character in this book. If he didn't like the people he worked with, that was a problem for him. That he had 25-year-long relationships, that for him was really not complex, that you should like the people you spend your days with. Why shouldn't work be pleasurable? And that, like, what a pleasure it is to design this poster or whatever, XYZ. They were designing a rug, and Sue randomly changed one color in the rug. Maybe this would look better. And Milton, that is the most beautiful rug. Like, he was astonished. And sometimes I have to stop and ask myself, when was the last time I felt astonishment at my work, at the world, at the people around me? It's such a unique, rare emotion, I think, because of how heightened it is. But his ability to feel that almost in his day to day is gorgeous and something we don't prioritize. Because astonishment is not productivity. Astonishment is something much more human and rich and fleeting.
I wonder whether you can design for that mindset. Is that nature or nurture?
In all things, I'd say a little bit of both. And certainly individually, I firmly believe we've got some, if we have some growth mindset around this. I think so often we tamp down our emotional responses at work because it's much more respectable to say that's a really strong idea with some really great data points to back it up, instead of, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've heard all week, which sounds more like an 8-year-old.
I think it would be great if we could all channel our inner 8-year-olds, because we took so much more in and were so much more open-minded back then. Let's shift from astonishment to eroticism. You referenced Esther Perel's definition of eroticism as a life-affirming energy, a sense of vitality and creativity. I love that definition. Do you think that it's possible for everyone to find a job that they're this erotic about? As I heard that, I thought to myself, gosh, if everyone could be that excited or that erotic when it comes to work, it'd be phenomenal.
I know. I love the term eroticism as it relates to work, because, you got to give your work a little sex appeal, right? Like, obviously in the HR friendly sense.
If it's a really good looking Gantt chart is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Like, that chart it's got lines in all the right places. Yeah. Some days are going to suck. They're going to be terrible. Not a hint of eroticism in your work, anywhere to be seen. But acknowledging that, I would hope that if you're going to have some lows, you're also going to have some highs. That spirit of, as Esther Perel defines it, of spontaneity and vitality and almost a surprise. What does it feel like to flirt with your work? To say like, in the same way that on a first date, you're thinking like, could this be big? Like, could this really be something? What does that feel like when we're, I don't know, launching a new product or like coming up with some new ideas? When you get that feeling of like a little flutter in your stomach of, could this be something? And then it's like, no, it's not something because of these reasons. But wait, maybe it is something because we could do that. That sort of will they, won't they? That's part of what you need to feel alive and awake at work. If you've ever been around someone who's like that excited about it, then you have a little bit of that, I'll have what she's having feeling. You need that in order to feel that sense of aliveness that is so core to finding fun in our work.
I didn't realize there was going to be a When Harry Met Sally reference in this.
I know. For anyone of the age bracket that gets that, yeah.
But I appreciated that. You write about business costumes versus dopamine dressing. And by the way, I really like that term. Do you think that companies often confuse being professional with simply looking professional?
Oh, yeah, all the time. That's in some ways even like the nice way to think about it. There's also the really insidious way to think about it, which is business costumes that way, suits or even business casual. It's conformity, really. It functions to make people feel like I need to show up in this way to be accepted and to fit in. Unfortunately, that's not only damaging for the business because people are not sharing their most brilliant work. They're sharing work that looks normal so they don't get fired. But even worse, it's terrible for our psychology to feel like I am not accepted as I am. I am only accepted at work if I show up as palatable. And what I find actually is the more senior and more confident a person becomes, the less they actually care about their dress, because they know I'm so good. You're going to want me to work on this, whether I'm wearing a suit or stretchy pants. I'm that good, because turns out I'm just as smart if my hair is wet or dry. And, that is true for everyone.
I started my first company back in 2007, so almost 20 years ago, and I changed my attire from suits to t-shirts around then. I don't think I did because I thought I was smart, but I did it because I was comfortable. And you talk about this in the book about conformity and doing the type of work that others are doing versus doing brilliant work sometimes. You want to do what's expected versus necessarily what brings pleasure to you or you think is the right thing to do, because there's so many people who are part of that machine. Can you dig into that?
Yes. The biggest barriers to brilliant work are busyness and conformity. Busyness because our brains just aren't creative and expansive in 30-minute meetings when we're in back-to-backs all day. And then conformity because when we are simply trying to make our work look like everyone else's work, I make my deck look like other people's decks. I make my reports look like theirs. I present in the same way. We're just rinsing and repeating. And you know who's really good at that? AI. If you're going to have humans in your business, they should be doing brilliant human work or uniquely human work. And the people who feel comfortable enough or are made to feel comfortable enough by their leaders and managers are the ones that end up doing really well. And that's ultimately what businesses should want more of, is more of that really uniquely creative, strategic, impactful thinking.
Let's shift from your body as a whole, your attire, to your brain. You talk a little about what we eat, how we exercise, and how important that is when we're coming to work. And I wonder if you could dig in on that a little bit.
Yeah, I like to make the analogy between a concert violinist and a knowledge worker. A concert violinist, now you have trained for many, many hours a day for decades of your life. You're going to play on the Stradivarius, right? The finest instruments that you can find, cared for by artisans. Another example, you are an Olympic athlete, you're an Olympic swimmer. You are going to have all of the trainers, the nutritionists, the physical therapists helping to take care of your body because that is your instrument. But when we get to knowledge workers or brain athletes, if you will, our brains are the instrument that we're using to do our work. And yet we do not take care of them. In fact, we trash them. The scientific research is very clear and uncomplicated about what makes a brain work well, which is good sleep, good mental health, good nutrition, exercise, like all of the things you learned in fourth grade health class, still true. And yet, what's the first thing we do when we're overworked and stressed? We don't sleep at night. We say, oh, what's keeping you up at night? We skip our exercise. We skip doctor's appointments. We eat like shit. We down caffeine. You probably need a drink or two after work. Like we're actually trashing the one thing that allows us to do our best work. And it doesn't make any sense. So when we are prioritizing quantity of output versus quality of thought, what we're actually doing is decreasing our impact in favor of producing stuff, when really no one's sitting in a concert valuing that the violinist is going to play for 5 hours. No, like you would like to sit in the concert for 1 hour and hear something badass. Same with our work, customers, clients, you don't need a lot of stuff. You need the right thinking and the right work. And so I just think it's crazy that organizations, they may give you a discount to the gym as a nod to like, oh, sure, wellness. But are they asking you for 80 hours of work each week and you don't have time to go to the gym? Well, that's the real problem.
Better to give you the time to go to the gym, better to hire more people, better to reduce the expectations of the business to make sure that everyone is taken care of as they're taking care of the business, than to nod to the fact that they care about people, but not actually show it. And I think that's really important. You talk a little bit about things that you can control, things you cannot control. I'm curious if you can talk about why this is such an important framework when navigating your career.
Oh, yeah. Know what you control, know what you can't control, know the difference. It's important because I think so often we spend our time and energy wishing something were different, being frustrated with the organization or the leadership. And honestly, it's warranted, put that in the employee survey, but it's not actually going to make our lives better. And so on a day-to-day basis, I'm a big fan of just understanding your own sphere of control and creating your own little corner of sunlight, even if it's a tornado in the rest of your organization.
I guess maybe that's why I feel the need to make jokes on a regular basis. I need that. I need that sense of joy. So in the course of your work, you have for years consulted with organizations and leaders and teams. If you could whittle down years of experience to 3 things that any leader can do to build a joyful, safe, high-performing team, what would those things be?
Number 1, do a check-in every day, which is just a structured way of saying, how are you? And listening. And it's a way to humanize the room. But most of all, it helps you to be a witness to each other's lives day in and day out, or week over week. Number 2, love a user manual. It's an exercise that I've used with every single team I've led. I picked up the practice in grad school. It's essentially a 1-pager on how to quote unquote operate you. So here's what brings me joy at work. Here's the people and animals important in my life. Here's how I can be misunderstood. Here's how I react to change. Here's what I'm working on at work. Here's what you can do if I'm stressed or sad. And then you fill in this 1-pager and the rest of the people on the team can read it. And then you learn about theirs. It's just the fastest way to accelerate team performance and bonding and liking each other, frankly. There's also a template on my website. You can go to breegroff.com/user manuals for a template. And then the third thing, it's really more of a technique than anything else. It's to be the narrator of your team. So as a leader, I think half the job is just narration, because people need to know, where are we in time or space? What are we all feeling? You just need to keep sort of the pipes flushed with everyone's emotions. If you don't actually talk about the business is bad, the project is stressful, or we have this new idea and we're going to have to work really hard, but it's also going to be really exciting. If you're not pushing that, formally internal comms, but informally just like talking about what's happening in the business, what happens is that you push that into the grapevine, because people are going to talk about this stuff no matter what. And as a leader, do you want that to be in the underbelly of your organization and the grapevine of everybody's so stressed, no one's talking about it? Or do you want to just say out loud, hey, I'm feeling like, everyone is just feeling really tense? I'm feeling sort of tense right now. Should we talk about why this is? You don't even have to solve it as a leader. You just have to narrate it. Here's how we're feeling. Here's what we're going to do about it. Everyone knows about the problems. At least then you carry on feeling like you're in it with each other. It's one of the greatest antidotes I know to teams feeling fractured, alone, underperforming.
Well, there's a lot for making people feel heard, feel seen, feel valued. And if you're asking them and talking about that stuff, you certainly are addressing it, or at least taking the first step to address it, right? Finally, you talk about working in a company where we're all like kids, saying, look what I did, look what I can do, and look what I thought of. It brought a smile to my face. Can you share a little more about this to listeners as we kind of close out this session? Because I think the more that we can find our inner kids and bring those to work, I think the more pleasant, exciting, adventurous our work experiences will be.
Work is inherently fun. That's what we forget. Not all parts of work. The bureaucracy is not fun. The stress of how things are going to go is not always fun. But fundamentally, I subscribe to the physics definition of work, which is just force times distance. It's just some effort that makes a difference in the world. because it's actually really fun to grow our skills. It's fun to show off our skills. It's fun to build things with other people. It's fun to build things that other people then enjoy or value. It's fun to make money. So if we can sort of settle into what is on a very basic level enjoyable about creating value, it's the same as a kid with a lemonade stand. Like, that's actually pretty cool. Like, oh, I'm out here. People like what I'm selling. People are giving me money for it. That's all it is. A startup is no more than like, I have a cool idea. Who wants to do it?
Bree, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully listeners will take away as much as I did from it and apply it. And as Bree mentioned, there are a bunch of templates on her website. So read the book because they reference all of them. And thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Well, this was great. Thank you for the thoughtful questions and the great conversation. I had a lot of fun too, so I appreciate you hosting me.
I really enjoyed today's conversation with Bree Groff. She shared her philosophy that work should be the source of joy and connection. Bree also offered 3 brilliant, immediately actionable tips for leaders. Number 1, create a user manual. Have everyone on your team write a quick guide explaining how they work, what brings them joy, and what stresses them out. This will accelerate your team's performance and their bonding. Number 2, protect the brain as an instrument. Recognize that the brain is our most critical tool. Prioritize quality of thought over quantity of output, and give employees time for proper self-care, sleep, exercise, nutrition. And number 3, reward brilliant risk. Stop rewarding safe conformity and busyness. Instead, reward ideas that are risky and different, not normal looking. This will foster true brilliance in every company. I, for one, plan to implement these ideas right away. I hope this conversation was impactful for you, the listener, as it was for me.